Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Before we get going on today's show, we're going to call this Generation Roth. First of all, just want to give you that for a little bit of a teaser. And last week, we really dove into this opportunity of the Roth and why we have the Roth even available today and what is going on, what the dynamics are in our economy, in politics, really in the landscape, for you to be able to understand why you have this opportunity now, why it may not even stick around much longer, or really what the underlying fundamentals around that are, so that the reasons why you want to really consider doing some different things for yourself inside of the strategies of Roth. We're going to open that up a little bit more today for you, quite a bit more for you. What am I talking about? We're going to go all in on this for you, and we're going to give you the full, almost the full Monty, but I know that means something else. So we're not going to do that. We're going to really open up the topic a lot more for you. And while we're doing that, something that you can do, because we know that you love to help us out here at Money on Tap, and what you can do, and we appreciate, is just the subscribes, the likes, the listens, the shares, all that activity in the podcast world. If that's not where you're finding us today, if you're finding us on the radio, you can find us there at Money on Tap. And, we love that. And while you're doing that, just drop us a line at info@yourmoneyontap.com or give us a call at 855-226-8551. We've got some Money on Tap gear we'd love to send you out as a thank you. Now, I know that the podcast listeners out there always hear that, go subscribe, go like, and, we appreciate you. But how many people out there are going to send you gear just as a thank you for going and subscribing? And, it's just, you know what? That's who we are. That's who we are here at Money on Tap at Brayshaw Financial. We want to recognize you and take some time to just connect. That's one of the reasons that we're doing what we're doing today with Money on Tap. And it's a pleasure to bring you this show today. By the way, it's not just me in the room. Ben, Dan.
Great to be on the show again today. Great to have Dan here, too. And this is an ever-changing time, and we talked about this a little bit last week. And, I just feel like there's a clock ticking. I can hear it in the background. And the tax world's going to change, and it's going to change hard. And a lot of people don't have enough time for what they need to accomplish to get retirement done. And they're not being warned soon enough on the steps they should take to try to amplify retirement. And, that limitation is staring at us, and it's just a matter of time before it changes. And we're going to talk more about that today. And I'm excited to be able to tell people just the stark truth of what they need to do and how they need to really grasp things so that their future looks brighter and better. And that's really what today's show is about.
Yeah, I think if you take today's landscape and you overlay it against historical tax rates, and I know we do this with clients all the time, Ben, as part of our kind of regular presentation, whenever the conversation of what pitfalls we see ahead, for anyone's financial future, that's kind of where the conversation begins. And you really see the light go on for a lot of people. We all think that we're taxed too much, and there's this constant state of, lower taxes, lower taxes, lower taxes. But, the reality is, we are in a really low historical perspective income tax bracket point. And I think you're right, change is coming. So finding ways to position ourselves best for a little bit of an unknown future, this is really good advice, and this is really important for people to take to heart.
And that's why I think, Dan, that's why we, have gone out and we've brought tax professionals in-house to really help our clients and help people find, the solutions they need to make sure that, hey, listen, am I missing some gaping hole? I mean, there's 1,000 different ways to file the same tax return. I mean, matter of fact, I think there was some they had sent some tax returns out to various CPAs to do some test runs, and not one of them had filed it exactly the same way. And so there's a lot of ways to file your tax returns. There's a lot of ways to address your tax needs. And, bringing that in-house has been something that, has been, something we wanted to do for years, and now we're doing it. And it's nice to see. The phone's been ringing off the hook a little bit for help, but we have people here to help you guys. So, reach out, give us a call, 855-226-8551. Get a second set of eyes. I mean, that's really the next step in life.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the place for it, but one of the random metrics that I came across, I just read, is that, and it doesn't feel like taxes have changed substantially between 23 and 24. However, the average return's down 27% so far in this tax season, which is totally like a random stat, and I don't know why, and there really wasn't any explanation for it. But just to take a measure of something and grab a hold of it, the average return thus far in the 2023 tax season that we're in is down 27%.
That's incredible. 27%.
Totally random stat. Yeah, I don't know what it means, but it means something.
Well, I would. I'd love to see that. I mean, not that personally, but I'd love to see where that came from. I'm really hoping we all don't see that. And with that, it's we got some news for you guys today. We got a fun show ahead of us, so let's get going. It's time for Money in the News.
First up today, coming to us from Elizabeth Buchwald at CNN, Capital One is buying Discover for $35 billion in the biggest deal so far this year. And this was a big deal, not because it was the biggest deal going on in Wall Street these days, but this is a big deal because this was accomplished largely due to Benjamin Brashaw's protest at Discover and their terrible customer service. He took down another giant, one of those David and Goliath stories. Here it is, live and in person.
This is just too funny. This is just too funny, Dan. I'm like, to think about, whatever a few weeks ago about, just the ridiculousness after being a 20-some-odd year, customer of Discover. It's, just the atrocious. Hey, listen, I'm clearly not the only person disgusted with Discover. I mean, it was just, you're not selling out a company because they're doing just absolutely fantastic. It's, they were just failing on all fronts, and that, my experience was probably just a droplet in the massive explosion of poor customer support, help, and care. And I take full credit for taking Discover down, though. I mean, absolutely. I mean, here today, right now, we made the call. It happened. I told you. I said I might even short the stock. Goodness gracious. I didn't, but maybe I will.
Yeah, 4 CEOs in 3 months or something like that. That's not good. Yeah, that's not good for a company.
I'm curious to see if the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, will have anything to say about this, because I wouldn't say that the credit market is diversified or robust. I guess that's the question I have, is how much control will they then have over that market, because that's a big chunk. Discover is a big chunk, and Capital One is a very, very big player in the credit market.
Yeah, there could be some concerns there. I think totally lending from the article when we had this conversation last, so this isn't anything that was new to the CNN article today, but they had all those compliance issues and concerns going on, right? Fleecing student loan payers, essentially, is one of the accusations in there. So although there is, potentially these monopoly-like issues out in the background, maybe the FTC is happy just to see some good stewardship, grab a hold of this thing, and stop hurting the consumer as they were at least accused of. But who knows? The combined entity now, Capital One and Discover, is going to be, a major player in that world for sure.
Good riddance is all I got to say. I know that sounds spiteful, but you know what? They were just a bunch of jerks. I'm so glad they're gone.
I knew there was more. I knew you had more to say than that.
Life is too short to be treated like garbage when you give these huge companies tons of money. I mean, I got to be honest with you. The only company that I have, has gotten massively huge that I have not had, feel like has cared more for their clients over time is Apple. I mean, you call Apple, they're available.
That's true. That's true. That would be an interesting thing for us to go and take a look. And I'm sure there's other people out there that are like Consumer Reports, right, that are probably taking a look at who's actually having a positive experience out here. because very rarely do I ever call my fiber optic carrier and have something positive to report on that experience. But, God bless all the people that are out there making sure it's working for me today, Speaking of mega companies out there hitting the news, making stuff happen. Thank you, Alexandra Canal, for this article in Yahoo Finance. It's streaming bundles. A new era has arrived. So media companies like Disney, Warner Bros. Discovery, it's Warner Bros. Discovery. I feel behind on that because they've added Discovery somewhere in the last 5 years, and I just was not paying that close of attention. Anyways, Disney's ESPN, Warner Bros. Discovery, and Fox announced they would launch a sports streaming service this upcoming fall. Meanwhile, Paramount, Peacock, Comcast have held discussions about potential joint streaming ventures, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. So this is, it's just the next thing that we're talking about and looking at here in terms of what streaming services and capacity, how are they going to start to capture or recapture some of those dollars that they have invested into the infrastructure and their ability to bring streaming services. Amazon's done it well. Apple has done it, and they've been just gobbling up these streaming deals out there. And one of the things I thought was really interesting is that ESPN is in with this. I mean, how could ESPN not be in with this? Because, yes, they are a part of Disney still, even though there's been talks about them, selling off or splintering off that part of their holding. They're coming back into the picture, not just as a deal maker out there with, your football organ. Pretty much that's what they've done, is they've capitalized on college football and professional football, and they've held the rights to majority of those services outside of Fox and CBS and ABC out there. But for the most part, they've been the ones that have been the money behind a lot of the Division I football and how those viewing services have gone. So it's going to be interesting to see, is there money to be had with this, and what are they what are they looking at? And what tier are they looking at? Are they looking at football? Are they looking at basketball? Are they bringing in more MMA, which has kind of been out there, and some of the ancillary services like Fubo and Hulu and all the other streaming services. By the way, Hulu is definitely part of that ESPN and that Disney service as well.
I'm massively perplexed by how you need a PhD to manage TV content. I mean, it was a lot easier when you could just turn on your cable box, click through everything, and you could see all the channels that you had and watch what you wanted. And now you've got to be like, oh, well, let me go to this service and scroll through their shows. Let me go to this service. And I mean, finding something to watch takes longer than ever. I don't know about you guys, but
that is a fact. That's the absolute worst. Yeah.
That is the absolute worst.
I'm so tired by the time I find something, there's literally zero chance I'm going to actually be able to watch all of it. I got one eye open by the time I figure out what I'm actually going to watch, and soon to be asleep is essentially the end of that deal.
I was watching a show the other day, and I was like, this is just absolutely the worst show ever. But I didn't turn it off because I didn't want to go find something else to watch.
Figuring out which streamer anything's on. Like my kids, they constantly have requests, and I got to you take 5 minutes to Google it and see, okay, which service is it actually on, and then you got to go type in the name of it, long form, and find it on whichever platform, just to find out it costs $3.99, and we're not paying for anything additionally. So, you're back to square one.
Then on top of football is ridiculous. I mean, you buy NFL Network, you don't get football. You get 5 games a weekend. I mean, it's not or Sunday Ticket or whatever it is, right? I mean, it's not. I mean, you literally have to have. If you wanted to watch every football game, you'd have to have 6 or 7 streaming services. Totally ridiculous. Not necessary.
It's not even listed in here, but I just heard it on the radio on the way in this morning, as a matter of fact. But they did one playoff game on Peacock this past year, which was great for Peacock, from what I've heard, but difficult for a lot of viewers to actually find it and make sure you got it on time. But they sold another game to Amazon Prime for next year, $120 million to broadcast exclusively one game in the playoffs next year in the NFL. So I think that kind of a la carte, paying almost per program is going to be one of the end results of this, which I'm not looking forward to.
Yeah, and I think this is such a joke. I mean, it's going to be some level of protesting because I literally just go through and I find out people of my family have subscribed to stuff, and I'm like, cancel, they change the password. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that it has to be as complicated that you can't even just Google it and say, where can I find this show or where can I find this game? I mean, it will tell you it's somewhere, but then, Dan, Seth, have you gone somewhere and not been able to find it there?
Yeah, it's old news.
It's like ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
My parents are staying with us now, and we're watching my son, who's just had a little bit of a medical procedure going on. And I mean, my father's retired, but electrical engineer, worked in software, worked in hardware, competent.
No chance he can manage
bright guy.
Netflix.
He cannot He cannot find CNN on Hulu at my house for my mother, which I'm sure Ben's very pleased about.
Absolutely the greatest thing that ever. Dan, it's news to my ears right there. Literally, no pun intended.
God answered some prayers in the
roll them right over to
the Mickelin household this week.
Just roll them over to OAN, Dan. OAN.
Oh, they can't find anything. Is the best part, and sad enough to say, but I don't know how many, 5 TVs in my home, at least 5 different remotes, 5 different access points. I mean, they don't have a chance. My 6-year-old's got it down, but they don't have a chance.
Yeah. No. Well, I am glad. So back to the article. I am glad that they're doing something here, but this is a drop in the bucket to the problem.
Well, one of the things I was really curious to see is that in this chart here of streamers Americans are canceling the most, Netflix down there at the bottom, around 2%. And Starz up there at the top, Apple TV Plus actually, and Paramount kind of bringing up and Max actually a couple of the leaders there. And I was really surprised that Netflix hasn't, started to try to move in and corner some of this sports market here too. It seems like it's kind of some of the legacy players that are trying to recapture their former glory.
Who is the company that's getting the? There was somebody out there. It's getting the wrestling. Is that Netflix?
What kind of wrestling?
They were looking at it. Yeah, WWE.
Yeah, I think they're going to get WWE. I think is what they were going after because that was the open slot. But yeah, you're right, Seth. They're the only one not listed.
Oh, I've got nothing to say about that.
All right, next up. Moving on. Yahoo Finance. We've got another one here. Dylan Sloan. Facing mounting debt, 3/4 of U.S. workers want to get paid every day. What a great article, first of all. So basically what's going on is that a lot of people who work various jobs have to go to payday loan services, and they ultimately are, cashing a check before they received it, right? And they're paying ridiculous fees to do this. So there's an in-house program that Walmart and Amazon are already using called EWA that allows people to collect their paycheck essentially every day. Now, there are fees for these things, but good, bad, or indifferent, no matter how you feel about this stuff, the problem is that, people need to pay off their debt. I mean, if you're trying to make ends meet every day and you've got a payment or something going on and you need your money and you can't wait for 2 weeks to get it, this is a good option for a lot of these large companies. I don't know how small companies would be able to handle this, but there's just a lot moving on here inside this. I think there's a couple of points made in the article because there's a lot of pros and cons to this. A lot of people are saying, hey, this is just another way of taking advantage of the American worker by these big companies. Yes, that's true. I would agree with that on some level because there are fees, but it is cheaper than these pay loan services where you walk in with your, signing over your next paycheck. And there's a lot of debate on this. This is something that has been widely embraced by Europe. And there's 40 countries that actually utilize these services from various companies. So this is not a new thing. It's just something that's kind of objected to in the United States. And then the other argument is, you got to learn how to budget. You got to learn how to manage your money, something that's, unfortunately not really taught in schools and really not given a priority to, how to manage money as much in our society. Something I think has just been kind of lost in the American culture and personally. And that's how I feel. What do you guys think?
One thing I thought was interesting here because I'm on board with the program in general. I think it. You're right that the bigger issue though, Ben, is people being able to manage their own finances. You shouldn't. It's something like a 7 or 14 day delay on payroll shouldn't throw your world up in arms here. But for the few companies that are piloting it here in the United States, what they have begun to notice though is that the withdrawals requested are in these kind of oddballs, very specific amounts, which leads people to believe there's definitely some inference going on here. But people are actually using it to cover a specific bill, or a specific need in kind of a crunch time situation rather than just grabbing at the cash because it's there, which I think is, makes me feel better about the program because that's where I can see it being useful and a benefit for all as opposed to just sweeping your money out every day. Sweep it out, sweep it out, sweep it out. Then I think that's going to lend to bad habits.
I'm curious to see what the benefit might be here on the 401ks as well. Because, how many times have we come across, situational needs? There's been a car that's been in the shop and needs to get out, and people go into their 401k loan programs to try to cover some of these costs when potentially they might be able to do it a little bit differently out of immediate payout from their paycheck. But I don't know. That's an interesting thing to see unroll, and I'd be curious to see what some of the other what's some like you said, inference would be.
I would probably say that I would rather see a parking account per se for retirement plans for people for emergency funds that they wouldn't have to pay, and I'm not talking about health care or some sort of major thing, but I think during the course of a 12-month period, you're putting money into your 401k. I think it should go into an investment account that you should be able to pull out under any specific need, housing, any generic need, food. You should be able to opt out of a portion of that and back that out because I see a lot of people just to get the match from their employer, put the money in the retirement plan, which we would encourage wholeheartedly. But at the end of the day, they might be stretching themselves too thin just to get the match, or their car breaks down. How many times does a car break down? You need brakes. It's $1,500, or you need tires, or you need to. We can create more accessibility where that would be only for your contribution, but at least you could park it there, and after 12 months, after it's still invested, after 12 months it vests. So you invest into the program, and then it's I think something along those lines could be totally feasible and manageable, or every quarter.
And it wouldn't have some kind of a haircut on it like that. The 10% early distribution wouldn't be a part of it. It would be like it was a non-qualified savings account that had access. That
then vested into your retirement plan every quarter. I think something along those lines would be a really healthy thing to give people a much better, Yeah,
we all have, the loan privilege, right? 50% of vested balance up to $50,000 is, provided for by the IRS. Why can't you have essentially a line of credit to that amount sidebar to your 401k? You can just pull it out when you need it and be paid. It's going to come back. It's going to be paid back automatically through payroll afterwards, as long as you keep your job. But I think there's some validity to that.
This is a really interesting idea because it's not being taught, like you said, in school. They're not receiving an education on how to manage their cash. And maybe it's going to be one of those things that becomes more incumbent on the employer or the partnership of the 401k provider and the employer to create something that is more of a cash management type of a program.
I'm saying write me in 2024, man. Write me in.
Well, you have my vote. You're listening to Money on Tap, and you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. I am so sorry to say we do have to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm excited to say that we have Generation Roth on tap for you here at Money on Tap. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Dan Mickle of Brayshaw Financial Group. Are you looking for professional guidance to kickstart your investing journey? Look no further. Brayshaw Financial Advisors are here to help. Our team of experts will provide you personalized advice tailored to your financial goals. Visit us at BrayshawFinancial.com today and schedule your free consultation. Brayshaw Financial, investing made easy.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You are listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And hey, so many of you out there have been wondering, how do I get my hands on some of that Money on Tap gear? Well, it's really easy. It's just going over to the podcast, subscribe, leave us a rating, or, say something about a show out there that you like. All that stuff. We just want to appreciate you and thank you because it helps us. It really does to, continue to make Money on Tap visible out there for people that need to hear what's going on and what's important for them in their personal finance journeys. And you can be a part of that. And for that, we want to thank you and send you some Money on Tap gear. It's a win-win. And we are today talking about Generation Roth. Last week, we did talk about the landscape, but we're going to refresh on that for you. Just quickly, why now is so imperative, or why we even have the Roth opportunity, and that's the Roth IRA. And what are some of the other ways that you can create tax-free income or sheltered tax-free growth, and then a tax-free income? Because you know what, maybe you're in an income bracket that says we're not allowed. We can't fund a Roth IRA. That's possible, and so there's quite a bit of options. Well, I feel like we have options, and right now with where things are at in the tax code is exceptional. It's rare. People don't realize that because they don't take a look at the last 50 years to see what's happened and why we are where we're at today. But we're going to dive into those things with you a little bit today and have some fun doing it.
Yeah, Seth, you bring together a lot of points that are hard for a lot of people to quantify. And the truth is if you're listening today, there's a Roth option or alternative or scenario for you. So don't turn this off. This is probably going to be one of the most important shows for a lot of people to land a successful retirement because whether or not you retired yesterday or you're going to retire in 10 years or you retired 10 years ago, there's conversation to be had, whether it's, for your retirement income, your estate planning, whatever it is, the Roth conversation has to happen now if it hasn't happened yet for you. And, I think it first starts with, where we are and where we were and trying to compare that so you can have a really good understanding of the tax code so you can actually say, hey, how does this make sense for me? I'm going to try to break this down as layman terms as possible. But today, the top tax rate is 37.6%. The bottom tax rate is 0, but 10% is the first level. That is exceptionally low no matter how much you think you're paying taxes and no matter which bracket you're in federally. Now, as you go backwards in time, and so if today you were making $150,000, whether you're single or joint filers, that's either a 22 or a 24% top tax bracket for you. That means that's the highest percentage you're going to pay on any dollar. Now, that's not all the dollars of what you pay, but it's a percentage. So you might land in an average tax rate of 18 or 15 or something like that, but you might be hitting 22 or 24. That same $150,000, we talked about this last week. If you go back to the 1950s, okay, we're talking almost 70 years ago. We go back to the 1950s, the top tax bracket wasn't 37.6. It was a whole heck of a lot higher. It was actually 91%. Let me say that again. In 1950, the top tax bracket was 91%. A lot of people fail to realize that. Matter of fact, Reagan, who was a great president, everyone celebrates him and how he furthered the economy, top tax bracket was almost 70%. Our top tax bracket today is 37.6. If you made $150,000 today and you were to rewind to the 1950s, you wouldn't be in a 22 or 24% bracket. You'd be in a 51% bracket because it would be about $16,000 a year back then, and that's what you'd be paying in taxes. It's absolutely hard to believe because it's 70 years ago, right? I mean, my parents really weren't even paying they were, but they weren't really paying taxes, nor did they understand what this was. But this was horrific. And no one understood that. And then today we're sitting at these tax brackets saying, oh, wow, I'm going to put money in my retirement plan. When I retire, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket. That is the biggest facade that still exists in our conversation among people who invest for retirement each and every day. And we need to wipe this slate clean and allow people to start over and start rethinking. Because, folks, we have almost $35 trillion in debt, in our national debt. And that $35 trillion in national debt, 14 of it's basically brand new within the last few years since COVID. And guess what? The only way to pay that debt back is either to have our government choose to spend less or to have you pay more. And so that tax bracket you're so enjoying that you're probably complaining that you pay too much in taxes will be much higher in the next 5, 10, or 15 years. And you're going to be looking back at this Roth conversation that we're having today, and you're going to say to yourself, why didn't I ever do everything I possibly could to get as much money into a Roth as I could even possibly do, or some form of alternative Roth thinking kind of investment plan? And that's what today's show is about, is because, the tax codes aren't changing today. They might not change tomorrow or 5 years from now, but your ability to either do a Roth or convert is so limited. There's all these structures and issues around it, whether you're concerned about taxes today or tomorrow. There's all sorts of different guardrails that they hold you into. And that being said, it's going to take you years and years and years to get to the point where your Roth is really where it needs to be. Because when you're really putting away into your 401k or your IRA or your SEP or your simple IRA plan, as those tax rates go up, it's going to eat away more and more of anything you're projecting to be part of your retirement income. And that's the big miss that we're going to talk about today.
That's a lot. And if you didn't catch, how do we short form that? It's hard. It's a big story, and it's a lot to try to pack in. So right now, Dan, what was the number that you said? 27% was the increase, that number that you found?
Decrease in refunds. Yeah, the decrease in refunds.
27% decrease in refunds. Okay. All right. That was, see, there's a lot of information flying around. It's hard to remember exactly which parts and which pieces. So when we're talking about that, the opportunity is, like, for instance, would you rather pay 24% or would you rather pay 50% for the opportunity? That's kind of the basic or the summary of where we're at right now and why it's important for you to take a look at what you're doing right now to maximize, right? Because you're at a discount. You may not feel like it, okay? Set that aside and understand that there's going to be an increase coming down the road. We're starting to see it already, just like Dan was talking about. There's 27% less or people that are getting refunds in their taxes this last year. So how do you go ahead and participate in that? Well, we want to go ahead and take a quick break and be back because we're going to give you the strategies that you need to pay attention to. And maybe you're already doing some of this stuff. If so, that's great. Maybe you want to pay attention because there might be some subtle differences, because there are some different ways to take advantage of these opportunities for you right now. Either way, we'll be right back. You're listening to Money on Tap. Hey guys, Seth Cressman with Brayshaw Financial Group. Are you ready to take control of your financial future? Look no further than Brayshaw Financial Group. Our team of experienced advisors is dedicated to helping beginners like you build wealth through smart investing strategies. Visit BrayshawFinancial.com today and start your journey towards financial independence. Brayshaw Financial Group, your partner in wealth creation.
You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are talking about Generation Roth. Hopefully by now the picture's clear what the opportunity is in terms of, the tax code. That's one of the main reasons that we focus on why a Roth. It's because, okay, for one, you have your traditional IRA. Okay, so you're going to pay, you're not going to pay money on that, or excuse me, you're not going to pay money on that. I get ahead of myself. You're not going to pay taxes on the money that you're putting into that IRA. The money grows tax-free. The money comes out taxed at ordinary income. Okay, so, down the road, you're going to be paying possibly substantially more on that money that's getting distributed, depending on the tax code. If the tax code goes up and, traditional income is taxed higher than it is today, you could be paying more. Or, if you're making less, which was the original intention of that IRA, is you're paying more now in taxes, you're making more right now in your income, you're going to take some of that money off the table, not pay taxes on it, save it for later, and pay a lower income or tax on it. And that worked while the income tax was coming down. Now we're at a place where we've seen pretty much as battle low as we're probably going to see, given the landscape of increasing debt and needs and services and government and all, so on and so forth. So what is the opportunity? It's just not the same opportunity inside that IRA. So the Roth comes along because people are, right, the big money's moving, and it's saying, give us an opportunity here to pay taxes at this lower income tax rate. Okay, we're going to pay the taxes right up in front. We're going to put it in the Roth, and we're going to get the growth on that tax-free, and we're going to take that money out later tax-free. What? That's incredible. What a great opportunity. Now, not everybody qualifies for that, depending on your income. There's phase outs. Okay, so you've now gone into I make too much money for a Roth. Okay, so what are the opportunities that you have after that? Okay, because there's several, and we're going to start to discuss some of those. Hopefully, it's clear why we're talking about a Roth and what the Roth opportunity is, and if you can do that, normally we're recommending, hey, take advantage of that.
Seth, as we talk about this stuff, I've had people come to me and say, hey, listen, I'm in the top tax bracket. Like, should I convert? Should I do this? I can't, I make more than, my wife and I, we make more than $240,000. We can't do a Roth contribution. Should I convert at 37.6? And, for some people, they're always going to be in these top tax brackets, whether it's real estate or something they have going on. And you say, hey, listen, 37.6 is lower than the 50% that somebody was paying in 1955, making $150,000 equivalent. Still cheaper. These could be the lowest rates we ever see in history. And could they go lower? Yeah, they absolutely could. And then I would say convert more. The biggest unknown is this future tax rate that we're going to burden us with. But the contribution limits are limiting in themselves, so that the warning sign is here. It's like, hey, listen, we know everything is in the matrix here to raise rates, but you can only put $7,000 a year into a Roth if you're under 50 and $8,000 if you're over 50. So if it takes 10 years for them to raise rates and deal with this debt and so forth, well, that's $80,000. Well, $80,000, I mean, you do 7%, you're looking at maybe, $200,000-$300,000 over the next few years, next decade or two. It's like, I'm thinking about like multiplication and additional, you start getting up there, but that's not going to solve your retirement income need. That's not going to get you there. And I think that's why I'm saying that clock is ticking, because you have these limitations, and maybe you and your wife can both make a contribution. So now maybe you're at $500,000. It's still not going to get you there. And so that's the big problem. And, then we start talking about, hey, should I convert, and how much should I convert? And this is where the strategy planning comes in. The first option, hey, a lot of people say, I'm over the income limit. Well, you can do a non-deductible IRA, and a lot of people will turn around and make that non-deductible IRA contribution and then convert it. And that's been an ongoing process for a long time. Dan, you and I have chatted about this a lot, and we know a lot of advisors as auditors. We know a lot of advisors that do this, and we caution them, and I would caution all our listeners to it as well, because it really hasn't been challenged well by the IRS. I mean, the point of doing a Roth conversion is entirely in the auspices of, I had this IRA money, I made a good, well-intentioned of making that contribution. I wasn't eligible for Roth, and I'm making that. Now, people are making that same argument, but it's definitely sleight of hand a little bit, and it doesn't look clean. What are your thoughts, Dan? Well,
it's definitely a loophole, and it definitely gets some attention, from time to time. I think for people that take the step and do it, they're going to be fine. I think I could see as the tax picture worsens that loophole gets closed. So this is just, my take on it, but it's kind of one of those, get while the getting's good type of opportunities, because I don't think it's going to be around for long. Just looking at the overall state of things in our needs as a government against the debts that we have, they just have to raise money, and this is a way to kind of circumvent that. So I can see that being something that does get shut down here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, all I would have to say about that is just making sure that you are on target with your CPA and all those numbers that you can back up. It's certainly an opportunity, and might be one that just goes away possibly sooner than later, because maybe like you said, the intention of it is not really what's being upheld, and they could come to the understanding around that and change things up quickly. So after that, if you aren't using that Roth backdoor Roth IRA strategy, there's the employer plan, which is your 401k. If you have a 401k, you can contribute to it regardless of your income. And if there's a Roth provision in that, that's one of the main ways that we see a lot of high income earners that are post the opportunity to contribute to a Roth IRA, either making conversions from the traditional 401k into their Roth inside that 401k, or making contributions. A lot of the time we see basically post-traditional 401k contributions, which are allowable for high-income earners to get the reduction on income. And once that's been achieved, basically maximizing the opportunity and the rest of it being moving over into the Roth. So there's two parts of that 401k program that really allow for the reduction of your income as well as the contribution into a Roth. And that's one of the great things that we have inside of that 401k opportunity. And frankly, it's one that when we're sitting down with clients, it's surprising, I would say, to see how few people are taking advantage of it. And I say surprising, it's not, because very, very, a lot of the time, there's just not a big push for the education around this inside of the 401k world. It's something that just kind of gets thrown out there, and maybe you catch it, maybe you don't. But there's really nobody kind of sitting on your side of the table, taking a look at this in depth and saying, hey, here's where you can really maximize the strategy that you have. And that's one of the fun things to see is like, wow, we've got this opportunity, that opportunity, and here's how we can put those pieces together for you.
It's amazing to me how few people actually know that there's a Roth component to their 401k if they have it. Like, it's just right, Dan? I mean, we sit down with people and there's a blank stare most of the time. I don't know if we have one or not. It was probably communicated. It was probably there. The information was available, but it's missed pretty often. And so I would encourage you, if you think that you don't have one, I would still go back and check, because they could always add it in any particular year. Could have added it this year for all you know. That's one of the things that I think is interesting. A lot of people, when we talk about conversions to Roth, I didn't mention this earlier, but I was talking with somebody and they were going to convert some highly appreciated Apple stock at the time. And I said, no, don't appreciate your Apple stock. I said, don't convert your Apple stock, because it's just going to be worth what it's worth over there. And yeah, great, you're going to pay taxes on that large number. But here's a stock that you're going to keep and maintain, and it's devalued itself. Why don't you convert that and then allow it to grow? And then we got into charitable giving and so forth. And then I said, well, why don't you donate some of your appreciated stock and keep the cash that you were going to give to the church instead? And so there's a lot of movements inside of conversion and charitable giving and a lot of different pieces that you can really maximize dollars. And a lot of people don't look at all of those. When the stock market tanks, that's when you can convert. You can take that analogy, for instance, So,
Ben, you said something with a client the other day when we were sitting in a meeting, and I thought it was great how, people turn to the CPAs for this kind of advice, but you got to understand that your CPA, their mission is to minimize your taxes this year. That is their laser focus, especially neck deep in tax season like we are right now. So they're not looking at kind of a long view financial planner's perspective on this. They just want to make sure that you pay as little as possible this year, which might not fit the program. So a great question to be asking of your CPA, and this came up in the last show. Say you had a loss in your non-qualified investment portfolio, up to $3,000 you can claim in your taxes. If you have something like that or some other kind of random deductions, beyond the standard deduction offered to everybody at $27,700, filing jointly, you could do some pretty simple backward math on the sum total of those deductions that you're receiving this year that you weren't really planning on, right? Work backwards from that number into what amount of your IRA, of your 401k you can afford to convert this year just to chew up that deduction that you weren't expecting anyway. And now you have this bucket of Roth money that you've created. If that's the kind of discipline you can take into each and every year, you're not really changing your expected tax picture. You can get your CPAs looking and thinking of it the way we want them to, and kind of addressing that issue from a planner's perspective, and build yourself a bit of a Roth nest egg along the way, which is, I think, going to be very, very helpful for people down the road.
You're listening to Money on Tap, and this is Generation Roth, the show that we have for you today. We absolutely love what we're about to talk about, so we got to give it a lot of room in the end of the show here for you. And we can't wait to get to it. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Don't go anywhere. We're talking about Generation Roth.
Looking for a hassle-free way to invest? Look no further than Brayshaw Financial Group. With Brayshaw Financial Group, you can start investing with as little as $100 and enjoy a user-friendly platform with a diverse range of investment options. Visit BrayshawFinancial.com and start your investing journey today. Brayshaw Financial Group, investing made easy.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com, talking about Generation Roth. And like I said, this next part of the show, we want to give it some room because it is a big topic and one that we love at Brayshaw Financial Group. And it's one that I think is very unique when you start talking to financial planners, because a lot of the time financial planners or people that hold out a shingle as a financial planner kind of domicile themselves in, managing market equities, stock bond portfolios, or, kind of these different parts of the story around finances. But we're three-dimensional investing is what we talk about at Brayshaw Financial Group. So we want to bring you all the parts and the pieces of what the financial industry has to bear, because each part and piece of it has a unique purpose. And this is part of what's important for you to have inside of your plan. Okay? All right. So with that, we're going to give it a little bit of room to breathe here. We're going to go into there's several different titles that this goes by. You can pick the one that you like. It's Rich Man's Roth. It's Be Your Own Bank. It's Infinite Banking. Am I missing anything there?
Super Roth. I mean, there's
Roth.
There's a lot of different titles here, Seth. And I think, as I'm butting into your intro here a little bit, there's a lot of people out there that just make too much money. Conversion's not an option. They've got a 401k. They've been working there a long time, so they can't convert it. They don't offer a Roth option. But there is just a huge opportunity that doesn't limit people the same way that conversion does or contributions to a Roth does, that allows people to amplify the Roth excursion concept inside their portfolio in a way that hasn't happened before. And this is not a new, this is the problem, right? There's good and then there's a lot of bad around it. And I think that's where, Seth, you're talking about the various shingles that are hung and so forth. Someone needs to know what they're doing before you jump into this mix, okay? But the Rich Man's Roth, the Super Roth, the whole conversation around that is all about insurance. But the problem is this area has been abused for many, many years by many, many people all intended on, raking in large commissions. I mean, let's just, that is the bad end of the story. Like, let's just bring it right out there, But there is this scenario inside insurance where you can put as much money as you want inside an insurance policy based on the policy limits that will grow tax-free, invested as you see fit, and come out to you tax-free just like a Roth would. So it's after-tax money that comes out to you tax-free just like a Roth would. And the problem with this is that these have been sold for 100 years or whatever, okay? But only in the last couple decades have they come out with programs or insurance policies that allow you to take a guaranteed income out of them. And there's only a few companies out there that allow this. Otherwise, every insurance planner who's ever sold, or insurance agent who's ever sold this under a planning technique, has never wanted to ever push the button for income, even though they're sold for that reason. Because the truth is that if these things fail, it's a massive tax hit, and you need to protect yourself and guard yourself from the tax liability there. And that's why a few insurance companies have come out with these income solutions that solve that problem and that fear. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key point there, Ben, is, in order for this idea, this concept to work for you, the insurance policy itself needs to remain intact from beginning to end. Right? The second that insurance lapses or finds itself in an underfunded position to the extent that the policy just ceased to operate, everything that you'd received up to that point becomes taxable in the year in which this event occurred, which is the exact opposite of trying to create tax-free income. That's creating a tax time bomb is what that is. But this program, if done well, represents one of those really rare opportunities that Seth has dubbed the triple threat, which is a fantastic way to describe these things. And I really love that. The tax triple threat, meaning that you get tax-deferred growth. So the money put into it grows linked to a major market index in most instances. There's a couple different ways you can invest within these things, but we tend to use a market index as a backbone to this. So the growth occurs tax-deferred while it's inside of the policy. When you begin distributions, you start taking it out, those distributions come to you income tax-free. And at the end of the day, if the policy stays afloat, there's still some remainder value and you pass away, your heirs are going to receive a tax-free death benefit. So there is the possibility here that we can create this fund without any contribution limits, without income limits, without qualifiers to the IRS as to why and when you make a withdrawal, right? So it's your money that it grows tax deferred, can be received tax free as income, and then whatever remainder passes on to your heirs goes to them tax free as well.
You know what? There's a lot inside of this conversation. We've got shows dedicated to just this concept right here. And, with that, I want to leave you with something to think about. We're all three financial planners here. That's what we're doing. Having fun, just talking about these concepts that we really believe in our heart is important for you. If you're not our client, it's still important for you. If you are a client, we're having these conversations with you. Now, we talk about the market, and we might own the same ETFs. We might not. At any given time, we trade together, we have these conversations together, but at any given time, we're owning different stuff inside of our portfolios, and we're doing different things, and it's just part of what we do. And each of us owns this concept right here and uses this concept right here. Our family owns this concept right here. It is a part of what we're doing that is consistent inside of our own finances as well as our families and a lot of our clients where appropriate or where they qualify. And it makes sense. So with that, that's a pretty powerful statement for all three of us to be able to sit here and have this conversation with you and say, this is how important it is to us to be able to share it from that place with you. So with that, we hope that you are a part of the Generation Roth, are taking some notes today, taking part of what we're talking about here home with you to have the conversations you need to have, to take action in the areas that you need to take action in. And if you need some help or if you need another conversation, that's great. We're here for you. You can call us at 855-226-8551 or get a hold of us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. Be successful in your investing. Make it a great week.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.